I sit up there and I look at it doing television as long as I've been doing it and being a journalist for as long as I've been a journalist. You find yourself as a black man, I know I do, where you feel the pressure from the community. And I don't necessarily embrace it from this perspective. I don't feel any obligation to feel what other people think I should feel.
Absolutely.
But I do feel an obligation to make sure that I articulate what a community is feeling, whether it's black, Hispanic, or beyond. Whatever your community is feeling, make sure you ask questions pertinent to that audience. I think I owe them that. What about you?
Same exact thing. Like, black people aren't monolithic. So I could never speak for a whole community of people. But, I have no problem, crowdsourcing questions, right? Like, what do you want me to ask said individual? Because I can ask a question that I may not necessarily have any feeling about, but I will ask because I know there's a large majority of people who want that question answered. So yeah, I feel the need to ask questions for the people, but you can never speak for a group of people because everybody in that group of people wants different things. But I think for the most part, just humans in America, regardless of race, anytime we having these conversations with politicians, we want upward mobility, right? And we want safety. That's it. People want some money in their pocket, and they want to feel secure every day that they wake up in this country. So I think a lot of times, we complicate these conversations about what it is black people want or what it is this group of people want. Everybody in America wants the same thing.
But when you say we complicate it, who's the we?
I think sometimes just people when they talk about these issues, because I think sometimes a lot of people come from a place of privilege. So it's like we can sit up here and have certain conversations about, things that are going on in politics, and we can talk about geopolitical issues, or we can talk about the border issues. A lot of those conversations come from a place of privilege. If you're living in, Moncks Corner, South Carolina, or the rural area down south like where I'm from, or you living in the inner city like Newark, New Jersey, or Chicago, if you can't keep no food on the table or a roof over your head, you don't care about what's going on in other countries. All you care about is why they keep sending money all over to those other countries, and we don't have our basic necessities met here.
That's one of the things I brought up because, listen, I'm far from a political aficionado, make no mistake about it, but, you read the newspaper, you watch television, you try to stay up on current events to the best of your ability, even though I'm inundated by the world of sports and what have you. But I'm looking at the kind of stuff that's going on. We've got an election that's coming up. We got an 81-year that's going to be 82 in November. We've got a guy that's going to be 70 years of age, and he's got 91. He got 4 indictments against them, 91 counts, and these are the two choices that we have for president. And I couldn't wait to talk to you about this subject because anytime any of us open our mouth, if folks disagree with us, we don't know what the hell we're talking about. It's not that they disagree with us. You don't know what the hell you talk about because you don't agree with them. And even though people are going to say that when it comes to political issues, it seems to be something that resonates far, far much deeper when it comes to us. Do you get that impression at all?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
I think because a lot of those political pundits, a lot of those political talking heads, those academics, they don't feel like we're qualified to have these conversations, even though both of us pay millions of dollars in taxes.
How about that?
You know what I'm saying? And both of us come from those hoods that a lot of them are far removed from. I don't speak for what's going on Capitol Hill. I speak for what's going on in the hood. And I think a lot of times when you've been on the Hill too long, you don't even realize what is going on with regular, everyday working class people, which is why I love doing radio, because I get to talk to those everyday working class people every morning and see what's on their mind.
What's it been like for you over the last several weeks? I saw you doing, I texted you immediately after watching you on This Week, and you were being interviewed about your position about President Biden, and where you basically talked about both candidates. One is uninspiring, and the other is obviously a threat to democracy. At least people, that's what they were talking about, attaching to you or what have you. What was it like for you being on that platform, seeing yourself on a Sunday morning? It's one thing to be on the radio on weekday mornings. You know what I'm saying? You've been interviewed 1,000 times over the year. Had your own show, you got your own show on Comedy Central. You've written books. You've done all of this stuff. But what was it like seeing yourself talking on a Sunday morning on a political show? What was that like for you?
That's a different audience. That's the audience that, that's when my mama get phone calls. That's when that's when they call my mama and be like, oh, I saw you, I saw your son on, on ABC. That's a different level of conversation. But I mean, honestly, it's the same it's a bigger platform that enabled people to misconstrue the things that I say even more. Because, what I like to say all of the time is that, the right-wing media does a fantastic job of pushing the narrative they want to push. Left-wing media does a terrible job of pushing the narrative they want to push, because what you just said is absolutely what I said. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, but Joe Biden is an uninspiring candidate with no main character energy. Fox will take that right-wing, he's an uninspiring candidate, with no main character energy, and they'll amplify that. Right. And they'll talk about that all day. And then the CNN and the MSNBCs of the world and the left-wing media, they'll talk about what Fox News is talking about. Instead of, why don't you take what I said about Trump being a threat to democracy and amplifying that for your audience? So, like I said, a platform like that it just gives people it's just a bigger opportunity for people to misconstrue what I said.
This conversation I'm having with you right now, Charlamagne, really is about us. It's about the black community, because I definitely wanted some help in terms of talking to somebody else, not just talking to myself, not just talking to my audience, but talking to somebody who talks to an audience every single day, millions of people every single day. When you look at us right now, the black community, and what we have to deal with in terms of our choices, the threat to democracy or the uninspiring candidate, how should we feel about this upcoming election? And I'm not talking about it just in terms of the candidates. I'm talking about what you and I both fear, which is going to be a willingness for people to go to the polls in droves the way that they once were willing to do, obviously, when Barack Obama was president.
Well, this year is all about the Republicans who are the crooks, the Democrats who are the cowards because they don't fight enough, and the couch. The couch is voter apathy. And, in November, it feels like the couch is going to win. And, when it comes to the black people, like I said, I can't speak for all black people because we're not monolithic.
None of us can.
But this isn't just about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This is years and years and years of neglect from government. I feel like black people fall into a category that my man Tim Ryan always brings up. Well, he coined the phrase, the exhausted majority. I think there's just a bunch of people in America, and a lot of black people fall into that category. We're just tired. We're just tired of politics. This is not the rematch we want. We've been promised change that we can believe in since, President Obama ran for president. And people haven't seen that change. The hood has not changed in any way, shape, or form. And you can't scare people into voting, even though this is probably the first time in my lifetime that they have, used the same rhetoric that they've been using. Oh, this person is a threat to democracy. But this time it's absolutely true. We've seen it.
But that's what pisses me off. Because they've been blowing into the wind for so long that when you finally articulate a position that appears to be very accurate, it falls on deaf ears because it's the same stuff we've been hearing for decades.
That's right.
And I think that plays a role into why somebody like a Trump can be in this position right now. And I'm wondering, listen, I'm not voting for him. I can tell you that much right now. I'm not voting for him. But it's not because of his politics. It's because of his behavior, the kind of person I think he is, and and I believe that he could potentially cause civil war in this country. There are people who feel that I'm ridiculous when I say that. What do you feel about that?
No, I 100% agree. I mean, we're looking at a Republican Party who's been overtaken by fascism, and it's not even close. Like, this guy already tried to lead an attempted coup of this country on January 6, 2021. This isn't hyperbole when we say these things. He's done these things already. Like, this is a man who said we should overturn the Constitution. We should get rid of the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. This is a man whose lawyers were in court saying, well, he never promised to support the Constitution. I don't care what color you are, what your sexuality is, what your gender is. If you call yourself an American, you cannot want somebody to lead this country who doesn't believe in the Constitution.
So what does it say to you that there are people in this country who do apparently want that particular individual, knowing those specific positions, back in that seat, back in that White House come 2024? What does it say to you about the state of our country that you have people who have no problem with seeing him right back where he once was?
Well, they've accepted fascism. And those are the people who I feel like they want their rights to be racist back. You know what I mean? They want white supremacy to reign supreme over this nation. Like that's what, if people can say whatever they want, that's what this country was founded on. Like when those founding fathers sat down at their table and they were talking about, liberty and freedom and justice for all, they wasn't talking about people that look like us. In fact, it actually said we were 3/5 of a human. So they definitely weren't looking at people who looked like us, or thinking about people who looked like us when they created that. So to me, those are just people who want white supremacy, to be at the top.
Well, playing the role of devil's advocate, you have folks
White
on
devil's advocate.
That's right. There you go. No problem. You do hear folks on the right saying, wait a minute, we're sick and tired of that R word being attached to us. The Democrats were once Dixiecrats. You had a situation where civil rights legislation in '64, voting rights legislation in '65, Lyndon B. Johnson sitting up there and talking about we'll have the Negro vote locked up for the next 50 years. We do this, but Republicans assisting, bipartisan-wise, in terms of Republicans and Democrats both assisting in bringing that kind of legislation to the desk of the presidency. And they say to themselves, they forget what role we played. It was the Democrats that were more racist than you could ever say about us. That's what they say. What does Charlemagne the God say when people have thrown that argument in your face? Because I know, I've seen Larry Elder on your show, along with various others. I've seen Vivek Ramaswamy on your show, along with others. And I know people allude to that. What's your argument when people throw that back at you?
I think it's kind of a ridiculous talking point, because even though it's true, we're acting like the ideology of a whole party didn't change. The ideology of a party changed because the base of a party changed. Yes, when, the Civil Rights Act was implemented, and like that made a lot of black people vote Democrat. They voted for John F. Kennedy. Then, they supported Lyndon B. Johnson. So, yeah, we're acting like a whole party's mindset didn't completely shift. It did, which is why I was even saying, the Republicans are the party of the Confederacy, so I don't know how far you can take them away from that. But I always felt like this year was their year to put somebody else in position other than a Donald Trump, and people are longing for something so different. Like I was saying, they should have got behind Nikki Haley because people were longing for something so different. I felt like she might could have picked up, votes from both sides of the aisle.
Well, here's why I disagree with you with that.
Okay.
I disagree with you with that because we all know what politicians are about. They're about maintaining power and remaining in office. And if you have a candidate that seems to have the constituency by the you-know-what, no one's going anywhere, no matter what you do to him, no matter what you say to him. I mean, more campaign dollars was being raised as the indictments flowed in. This is how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so if you see that Nikki Haley has no shot, that Ramaswamy has no shot, that Chris Christie had no shot, that DeSantis didn't have a shot at all or what have you, and that's the way the momentum is flowing, and you're trying to survive, and this candidate is the kind of dude that'll call you out and will turn your own peeps against you. Nobody does that better than Donald Trump. So if you know that, you might be making decisions based strictly out of fear for survival.
I agree with that, but I don't know if Donald Trump can win in a general election. But I also don't know if Joe Biden can win in the general election. But I think that, somebody like a Nikki Haley or anybody fresh, I think would have a much better shot in a general election than a Donald Trump was. I think Donald Trump and Biden is a toss-up. And it's literally about which one of them can energize those people to get off the couch, or which one of them can go out there and capture those people who in the Republican primaries was voting for Nikki Haley. And I think whoever can do that is we're going to see who's going to win in November. And the other thing people aren't factoring in come November is voter suppression. There's going to be voter suppression that happens, right? And the only defense Democrats ever have against voter suppression is we got to have the largest voter turnout in the history of America. I don't think they get that in 2024. So if it's close, what Republicans do? They're going to steal it. So that's just a fact. So I don't know. I just felt like, Nikki Haley or anybody else, probably gave them a better shot than Trump would. I think with Trump is 50-50, with Biden is 50-50. I'm really not sure how Trump fares in the general election.
When you look at it, the audience that's out there right now, and you think about what you just said, as we look at the Democratic Party, first things first, you're Republican, Democrat, and Independent. What are you?
I'm registered as a Democrat.
I
consider myself an independent because I don't know why. Honestly, as a black person in America, I don't know why we're beholden to any of these parties.
Yeah, I'm not.
Like when I see these crazy black MAGA conservative lunatics, I don't know why they like that. And when I see these black liberal ready to cut your head off over Joe Biden. I don't know why they like that either. As a black person in this country, you shouldn't be beholden to any party whatsoever.
I don't think so either, because I don't think either party has done enough for us as a
totally
community.
agree.
That's totally where I'm at with it. But having said all of that, one of the things that I've received a lot of criticism for is that I've called out the Democratic Party more so than ever before, because I think it's an absolute embarrassment and a disgrace that in the year 2024, you, the Liberal Party, and I know some Democrats don't call themselves progressives, but when we hear progressive, we associate that with the Democratic Party. That's just a fact. So when you look at it from that perspective, I'm sitting there saying, how in God's name in the year 2024 do we find ourselves as a Democratic Party begging an 81-year-old who turns 82 in November to run for re-election for 4 more years? To me, of all the inexcusable things I've seen Democrats do over the last several decades, this might be the worst, because you couldn't find anybody? That's what I say. What do you say?
I agree with you 100%, and I think that when people give us flack for pointing that out, or criticizing President Biden, I would have to tell him to shut the F up forever. And the reason I have to say that is because if you're telling me that there is a threat to democracy on the other side of the ticket, like somebody that is, you're seeing them strip back all of these different rights. They implemented Supreme Court judges that's stripping away all of these different rights from us. We saw him lead an attempted coup in this country. We saw all of that. If we're not 100% sure that the person on the other side can win, or we don't feel like they're doing enough to win, or we don't see the sense of urgency coming from them, why shouldn't we press them on that?